We also want an experience that's competitive and fair. We are a very competitive game. That's our DNA. That's who we are, right? You go back all the way to the very first Halo, right? Multiplayer. I mean, it is a highly competitive game. And so we want an experience where players can expect that the game is competitive and fair. And skill and teamwork should be a path to victory, right? The path to victory. That doesn't mean abandoning social players. That's not what that means. But it is about fairness and competition.
343 is a company that I would say has been failing upwards since its formation over a decade ago, but it may be more accurate to say it's been failing laterally. They've never seen the same cultural cachet or staying power as their predecessor, largely I suspect because of some crucial differing interpretations of what Halo is and why it once resonated so strongly with people. Nearly every major release they've produced has been met with some degree of polarization, controversy, or outright rejection from the established fans of the series. There just seems to have always been a deep incompatibility between the company and the fan base. 343's latest developer update after a very long silence has illustrated this very clearly, and it seems to have been something of a breaking point for many in the community, going so far as to spill into mainstream news. Again, this is about fundamental misalignments between the company and the community regarding Halo and its identity. We know from outside reporting that Halo Infinite had a long and hard development rife with competing interests and internal debate about what the game should even be. I think at this point it's quite evident that the vision and the game Infinite ultimately became was only decided upon by 343 very, very late in development. Let's not forget that this is the game that was delayed an entire year after its initial reveal. And in that time, we've seen the studio bleed talent at a regular pace, losing key people and constantly shifting gears as a result. According to Infinite's new live service lead, Halo is fundamentally about competition, competitive play, which was met with tacit agreement by his cohort. When we observe Infinite's emphasis on esports and HCS, as well as their albeit bizarre acquiescence to ranked players' complaints about the Mangler universally reducing damage dealt across the entire game instead of rebalancing this one weapon for ranked modes, as well as Halo 5's focus on highly competitive play, inviting pro players as consultants during development, we can see that this really is what 343 does believe regarding Halo. But rightfully, I think, we're currently seeing a lot of pushback against that sentiment. Halo was never meant to be hyper-competitive, it was designed to be accessible. Recall that the console space was not where people played lightning-fast first-person shooters at the time. Those were played on PC, where there was serious competition in games like Quake and Counter-Strike. But Halo aimed to make a first-person shooter on console, meant to be played with the controller. It was designed to be a slower, more easily readable, lower-stakes, fun experience as a result. Hardy LaBelle himself, an original Bungie developer and one of the chief architects of Halo multiplayer, describes his approach as a party game, one he liked to imagine Nintendo could be proud of. I hope you'll forgive me a personal anecdote, as I think it illustrates my point and is probably an experience many may share in the community. When I first played Halo 3 back in 2009, my only real experience in multiplayer shooters had been Call of Duty. Fast-paced, Twitch experiences with this loathsome rhythm of spawn, sprint, shoot, die, spawn, sprint, shoot, die. My assumption, based on this experience, was that multiplayer shooters were about winning, about being the best. So I started out Halo 3 in Lone Wolves. The ranking system meant I was grouped with similarly experienced players, and as I played, I found I was pretty good at the game. This went on for a bit before I grew increasingly tired of what felt like a very lonely and monotonous experience. Without really knowing what any of the other game modes were, I tried Big Team on a whim. I matched into a game in progress on Last Resort. The game I joined was absolute chaos. No one was playing the objective. You had players from opposing teams riding together on mongooses and warthogs, flipping around off jumps and grav lifts. No one was attacking each other, rather, they were shooting the shit through proximity chat. They were messing around with the physics, trying to reach parts of the map that were hard to get to. We were laughing, goofing off, having fun. Suddenly I understood Halo, and I fell utterly in love. My best friends today, I met through that lobby that day. That is the core of Halo. That is the soul, the lifeblood, the key to Halo's success. Community. Casual fun. An extensible game that could be altered to become many new games with new rules. Pre- and post-game lobbies, in-game proximity chat, a service record to show off your Spartan and your achievements for bragging rights, file share, forge, custom games, all communal features. Casual, creative, fun-first features. That's why people loved Halo, why those games lived so long, and why they're still enjoyed today. Infinite has come so close. It understood Halo's visual design ethos. It understood the importance and the elegance of equal starts and sandbox-driven gameplay and interactions. It understood the appeal of simpler, more self-contained stories that don't depend on peripheral media for crucial context. But it failed to understand Halo's soul. It prioritized competitive play, resulting in exhausting games where the player is constantly engaged, constantly sweating. I can hardly get my friends, the same people I met through Halo 3, to play Infinite with me. 343's approach to gameplay and map design, a philosophy of dogged competition, often leaves them frustrated and angry because they haven't put in the time to learn the maps, the strats, the sandbox, etc., and for that they're punished. The skill-based matchmaking system of Infinite crushes players into playing out of spite, a cruel means of driving user engagement by skewing matchups to make you fail more often, either by putting pressure on you to carry your team or simply be steamrolled by a more skilled opposing team, with almost no middle ground. So of course my friends don't enjoy the game. It's dominated by people who've internalized that hyper-competitive ethos. But unlike earlier games, that's all Infinite has to offer. When we were exhausted of PvP in Halo 3 or Reach, we'd open up Forge and mess around, building racetracks or whatever else we felt like. Or maybe we wouldn't build anything at all. Sometimes we'd just go exploring. Or we'd play custom games. Our favorite game was simply called Halo. Play it on a map, simply called Halo. It was a variant of Infection where survivors had to mount a vehicle and drive through a massive obstacle-laden ring suspended in the sky while trying not to fall off, either due to other drivers or due to the zombie who could snipe or launch rockets at you from above the center of the ring. We'd play that all the time, and it was always so much fun. Infinite doesn't have anything like that, because these features and the flexibility and extensibility that made Halo so evergreen and exciting simply weren't prioritized. Because all that stuff, it could wait. More important was HCS. More important was the in-game store, driven by fear of missing out, an approach to customization that stifles expression and individuality, a manipulative challenge system in place of a proper progression system that demands specific behaviors or else pressures you into buying or using challenge swaps. All this was more important than making a game that could be anything you wanted it to, the way Halo always had been. And so Infinite squandered the biggest launch in series history, perhaps in the belief that competitive play streamed on PC and big esports events would be enough for Infinite to thrive, staking its identity on it seemingly. But without those other avenues for people to enjoy the game, without a space for community, no community could form. Population dwindled, and now even die-hard players are out of patience. Misplaced priority has compromised Halo as a brand and hurt a community in search of experiences that simply aren't possible anywhere else. It seems Infinite has seen yet another reboot of sorts in its approach to development in response to ample feedback. My hope is that while they're turning the ship around, they rethink their philosophy of Halo, if it isn't already too late.